We are live right now.
Welcome. Hi. Good afternoon to everyone who's joining on our first Career Sundays this afternoon at 3. We're all really happy and we're all very excited to we're all very happy and very excited to have you all join us today. I'm sure you all have a lot of questions and a lot of doubts, concerns, worries about what's happening with your career, what is the world going to look like, world of work look like in a post-COVID environment, and to the best of our ability, we're going to try and get you those answers to your questions. But before we move on, I want to welcome Pramath, because of course it is Career Sundays with Pramath Raj Sinha. Hi Pramath, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us.
No, thanks, Shuha. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can see me all right as well. So my internet is working fine.
Perfect.
Okay. Happy birthday, by the way. I hear it's your birthday today. What a day to launch this.
What a day. What a day. Thank you, Pramath. I just want to quickly introduce everybody to Pramath, of course, for those of you who may not know him. Pramath is the chairperson and founder at Harappa Education. Pramath is a man who's had his fingers in many, many educational pies. He was the founding dean at the Indian School of Business, or ISB. He was a founder at Ashoka University, and he's also played a very important role. He's been very instrumental in setting up varied fellowship programs across the country. In fact, in his cumulative experience over the last 2 decades, he has guided, he has mentored, advised many, many, many young professionals and students, which is why he's here today. And he's also going to try and answer as many questions as you guys have as he possibly may. So Pramath, before we start, just a quick fun question for you. When you were starting off in your career, what was the main question that kept plaguing you or worrying you about your career?
I think I had the same kind of career issues that all of you and others have. I think the the fundamental issue is that I think some of us are lucky enough to have choices, and you don't know which choice to choose, or which choice to make. And so I think that is probably the biggest challenge that I keep running into. And when people approach me as well, they ask me, is that the biggest? So, should I go do a PhD or not? That was a big choice for me. Should I study engineering or not? Was a big choice for me. Should I leave academia and go to the world of business or not? Was a big choice. Should I come back from the US and Canada and live in India? Was a choice. So I think those choices are the big ones that I've had. Of course, unfortunately, sometimes you have to deal with, things not going so well. So I've had my share of those as well. Bad bosses, bad choices. You can sometimes spend all the time thinking about the right choice and you make a bad choice. So those are some of the things I've had to deal with. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on then. Let's start this afternoon. I just quickly want to take everybody who's joined us, I just want to take them through the agenda for today. We're going to spend a couple of minutes first over the rules of engagement of this afternoon's episode. Then we'll go into our short take segments where we'll have quick 5-minute interactive sessions between Pramath and 5 candidates. Then we'll go into the deep dive counseling segment of the show. And then finally, we'll open it out to the floor for audience questions. Moving on. Yeah, so first up, we have the details of how this afternoon has been planned out for you. So as I mentioned earlier, the short take segment is going to go off first. We have 5 participants and each of them are going to have 5 minutes with Pramath to get their questions answered. As soon as the 5 minutes is up, a buzzer will be sounded and their mics will be switched off. Followed by once all our 5 candidates are over, that segment will be followed by the deep dive counseling session, where we have a young, bright, very promising graduate from a noted university of the country who's having to make some critical decisions in this juncture. And so we're going to see how Pramath can help and guide him through that. And then, of course, we'll move on to audience questions. I want to request all of you, those of you who have joined, if you have any questions, please send them as and when you think of them. You can send them through either the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll take them as we go along. Now, this probably sounds like a slightly complicated, slightly confusing format, but I promise you there is a method to this madness. We actually had a selection process, if you can believe, for whom we can open out to ask their questions. So first we sent out a survey, a form, that brought in a lot of responses, and we reached out to those people who consented to be on this show to come on and either ask their questions or actually have a proper counseling session with Pramath. And every applicant has been primed before about the amount of time allocation that they are open to, and this time allocated to each person is not open to being changed. Anyway, so let's quickly move on now. But before we actually start with the short takes section, we have a quick question for all of you in the audience. So we just heard what Pramath's worries were when he was starting off. So if all of you could also let us know what that one big worry is that all of you are grappling with about your career at this point, in this moment. You can send in your answers either in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Right. So job security and career momentum is one such concern. This, Pramath, is, I think, you're going to get quite a few questions about people wondering if they should go back to being a student or not. Ageism. Oh, wow, that's an interesting one. All right. Okay. Right. How can I build a family while building institutions? So maybe we can have you comment on that for a second, Pramath, given that, I'm sure you've had some experience in that. How do you do both? How do you balance it out?
Well, there are times in your career when one takes precedence over the other, and unfortunately, that is the case. It balances out over time, but I do think that there are times in your career where your work and your studies take precedence over the family, and vice versa. Of course, there are some boundary conditions
Right.
for, there are certain things for which you will not. There are certain things that you do want to do for your family or to build your family, which you don't want to compromise on, and that will, of course, be traded off against something that you have to do at work. So, for example, there was a period of time when my father-in-law and my father was very unwell, and they eventually died that year. But I think my work suffered. Uh, I've never had to make a trade-off personally between studies and family, because I completed my studies early in life. But when it comes to family and work, then of course there were inevitably trade-offs. My wife was very unwell for quite a period of time, and so I had to adjust my work life to take account for her illness, and it was not easy because my other peers didn't have to, but I had to. So I think the balance, hopefully all of that balances over time, but there are going to be periods in your career when one thing will take precedence over the other.
Right. And I think that's good. That's good advice, Pramath, because even if many of us as young professionals don't really have families, but we do have dependents and we do have
Yeah.
responsibilities, and so I think,
Parents getting old is a
yeah,
common one in
yes,
India. You may be just close to your grandparents, and
yes,
they may be getting old. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Okay. All right. So we'll move on now to
sure.
the short take section. Uh, we have 5 candidates, of which our first candidate today is Akhil Neelam. Akhil Neelam has 3 years of work experience, and he's worked in the field of policy and government. Before he started his work, he completed his postgraduate diploma in liberal arts from Ashoka University's Young India Fellowship, and I think he has some questions about whether he should go back to being a student or not. Akhil, hi.
Hi, Suha. Thank you so
Hi,
much.
Akhil. Good to meet you. Why don't you take over and
Yes,
ask Pramath your questions?
yes. Hi, Pramath. I have two questions I've been grappling with. One is that for the last 3 years, like Suha mentioned, I've been working with the government of Andhra Pradesh in two different roles. One as a communications consultant in the Chief Minister's office for 1 year, and then 2 years with the school education department on mainly on strategy. I hold admission offer from Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and my question is that how do I make most of this degree to find a specialization interest, because policy itself is a very broad area, and pursue an international career working across different geographies after the degree. The second question that I'm grappling with is how do I manage either full-time masters or a full-time job along with starting up a social initiative simultaneously, and how best can I invest my time and energies to manage this efficiently? Thanks.
Okay, Akhil, I think you are trying to get two for the cost of one, right? But I'll try to answer both questions. But first, it's great to meet you. It's always good to meet YF alums. Just to understand the first question better, you already have an offer from Fletcher.
Yes, I already hold.
And which program at Fletcher?
MA in Law and Diplomacy.
Okay, and that's the 2-year program, right?
2-year program, right?
And so the question you're asking is, what should you specialize in at Fletcher and post Fletcher?
Yes, correct.
Because you are interested in the broader policy area.
Yes, correct.
And would you say that right now you actually don't have a preference?
I don't. I have 2 or 3 preferences, which are international, international development, economic policy, and the diplomacy. But yeah, apart from these, also as and when I'm getting exposed to different fields of study that the college offers, I'm slightly getting confused and rethink.
So Akhil, why do you have to decide now? Why don't you decide once you go there?
Yes, yes, I can surely do that. But is there a approach that you suggest I should be doing while I'm there, or like before going there?
So a couple of more questions. You mentioned that you'd worked in school education.
Correct.
So when you worked in school education, what was it about school education that really interested you?
So more than school education as a field, I joined the department because it was offering me an opportunity in terms of working on policy strategy.
Right.
I am in the team called Project Management Unit. It's sort of very critical to the Commissioner of School Education here, guiding the broader policy areas within the school education. And school education particularly is motivated me at that point because my father is part of this school education ecosystem. He's been a teacher for almost 3 decades now.
But Akhil, it sounds to me like you are much more, so you came at school education much more from a policy and strategy perspective.
Correct, correct.
See, it's hard for me to tell you what to do, but I think and obviously you're asking me more for an approach.
Yes.
And one of the things that I would go back to is to see what is it that you've really enjoyed doing
Hmm.
amongst the different things that you've done. And in the field that you are in, either people enjoy the design and the strategy, okay,
Yes.
or they enjoy the the action on the ground. So engagement with the public, doing things, rolling out programs, making sure things are scaled up, trying out new things in the field, testing it, fixing it, right? So it's more
Correct.
implementation and execution oriented. And then there are people who are very interested in communication, uh, who like to be able to spread the impact, or communicate the impact or the insights of what you've done.
Hmm.
Because I also do some work in the public policy area. As you know, I
Yes, yes.
work very closely with the Albright Stonebridge Group, which is Madeleine Albright's company. And we claim to work at the trisector of business, society, and government.
And government, yes.
So I see those three buckets. Now, you could be interested in all three. And if you're interested in all three, then the most people who are interested in all three pick a sector. So they would pick education, or they would pick climate change, or they would pick water, and then they would span all aspects of it: the design, the strategy, the implementation, and the communication. But then there are others who cut across a particular function. So you do communication, but you do communication across sectors. You do implementation, but you do implementation across sectors. So that's one way to categorize the space that you want to play in, and then see what is the best fit for now. I wouldn't worry if you don't know. Then I wouldn't worry too much about figuring out what you will be doing ultimately, because if you don't know, you don't know, and that's a good thing. That means that you are open. So I would look back at things that you've done and say, hey, what are the things that I really enjoyed? What were the modes in which I really had fun? And then I would take that to Fletcher and combine that with new things that you are discovering about Fletcher. So you go with a first draft of what you want to do, which could be that I want to be in design and strategy of policy.
Yes.
And I don't want to be in a particular education or climate change sector. I want to be more in the design and strategy of policy, or I want to be only more in communication. I take that as my version one of what I want to do and specialize into Fletcher. And as you go through the first half of Fletcher, you'll start to see other areas which you had not thought of.
Correct.
And that might change your view of what you want to do. To give you an example, I wanted to get out of my field when I left. So Shuha is saying we need to wrap up. But very quickly giving my example, I did my BTech in metallurgical engineering and I hated it. But I wanted to do a master. So I said, okay, I'll go and explore mechanical engineering because it was adjacent. But I didn't really know what I was going to do in mechanical engineering. And when I went there, I realized that, oh, robotics is a fun field. I want to do this. And I ended up doing my PhD in robotics. So I knew I wanted to do a master's, which was what I was carrying. I went into an adjacent field and then I discovered something new. So I think that's one way to think about it, is to say, I have some interests. Let me make that move to an adjacent field, and then from there, discover new things to do. Does that help?
Yes, yes. I think that helps. Yes.
Okay, Akhil, thank you. Sorry, time's up, but we can chat sometime,
Sure.
some other time. But all the best. Always good to talk to a YF alum.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Akhil, and good luck. We really hope that your time at Fletcher proves to be worth its while and worth all the crazy decision making
Yeah, and
that
I
you.
forgot to say, because I started to solve your dilemma. But congratulations, Fletcher's is a great school, and I'm glad that you're going there.
Thanks so much.
Okay, next up we have our second candidate. Right. So Ashima is joining us as a part of this short take segment. She's our second candidate. She has 3.5 years of work experience in the field of public policy, and she's, I think, recently completed her master's in public policy, and she wants to pick your brains, Pramath, about her field. So Ashima, hi.
Hi, Suha. Thank you for the introduction.
No
Hi,
problem.
Pramath.
Over to you.
Hi, Ashima. Tell me, how can I help?
Yes. So my educational background is in engineering, and right now I'm doing my post-graduation in public policy. My previous work experience is in the field of consulting and analytics, which is not related to public policy. So now my first question is that now I wish to work in the field of public affairs advocacy and policy consulting, mostly in private and corporate companies. So taking into consideration the current economic scenario, what advice you would want to give me related to job prospects and the sectors that I am targeting? And the second question I would like to ask you is that what are the skills needed to succeed in the public policy domain that I can work on and build on right now? Thank you.
All right, Ashima. So can you tell me a little bit about where you are studying right now, and are you about to finish? Are you in the first year of the 2-year program?
Yes, Pramath. So I am doing my post-graduation in public policy from Indian School of Public Policy. And the course is scheduled to end in July mid, and it's a 1-year program.
Right. So you are at ISPP again.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's a great program. And I think I spoke to you guys
Yes.
a few months ago. It seems
Yes.
like a long time ago, thanks to Corona. Right. So for you, this is a big career shift. And I guess you really wanted to do this. What was your motivation for making this shift?
Well, firstly, my motivation was that I wanted to do something in the field of policy making because of my background in preparing for UPSC. And that gave me the initial push towards policy making. And secondly, while I was studying at ISPP, I kind of figured on the areas and the sectors that I can work on in the future. And public affairs was one sector that really prompted me because of the kind of opportunities that I would be involved in terms of the liaising roles between the government bodies and the corporates and the advocacy framework. So that is why it motivated me a lot.
Right. So as you know, the public affairs role is an advocacy role, right?
Yes.
Am I right? Am I understanding this right? That
Yes.
basically it's about advocacy with government or with societal organizations, development organizations, or between them, right?
Yes.
And maybe doing some public advocacy as well with the society at large.
Right.
So your first question about the public affairs and policy consulting was whether you should do it or not, or what was your question about that?
Seeing the current economic scenario with respect to the coronavirus pandemic, obviously we see that the recession has grabbed in and the firms are right now feeling
right. So listen, if you are going to look for private sector roles or think tank roles or consulting firm roles, it may be a challenge immediately. But over time that will recover. So the question is, what do you do in the meantime? Obviously, I'm not assuming that you won't get, so I'm sure you will try, and you should try, because I don't think the jobs are going to completely vanish in this space, but people will be a little bit careful to begin with. Uh, my advice to people who want to work in the policy area and who want to work in the advocacy area, or who want to work with government, in terms of communication and public affairs, is to try and use these times between the jobs to actually do some work on the ground. Because, since you haven't really done any work with the government or with development organizations or with the private sector in this area, getting some on the ground experience in terms of working with, say, a governmental organization or a semi-government organization or an NGO that is involved in certain causes, or that's involved in certain uh, certain certain in solving for issues that are at the intersection of the government and whatever sector they are in, would be a good experience to get. And what I would do is bide your time by even trying to get an internship with some of these organizations, so that you can get, as it's called, get coal face experience, actually experience in what happens when a government policy runs counter to, say, delivering something to citizens, or for a private sector to be able to deliver its products and services. Where does regulation actually hamper somebody? So I think if you were to work on a foreign organizations that dealing with a real issue, whether on the government side or on the private sector side or on the social sector side, and bide your time, that will help you become a much better public affairs or a policy consultant later on. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
Yes, it actually makes sense and it would help me connect the dots. But
Yes.
just to add one point, I am right now doing an internship with an MP, with a member of parliament. So
Okay.
that is giving me ground exposure also.
So can you extend that in the sense that you keep that on till you are able to find a job, so that you're not under pressure that you have to find a job as soon? I know your program must be coming to an end very soon, right?
Yes, that so there is a flexibility in terms of extending the time limit of the internship, but
Yes.
then that would be basically giving me an exposure. But like I said, that the like I am looking for opportunities, so let's see what happens. And any skills that you would want me to right now work on, given the best time where I can work on them right now.
Yes, I mean, I think the ability to look at problems from multiple lenses, and this is one of the things we teach at Harappa in our critical thinking course, right, is that one of the approaches to doing great work in this field is to really try and put as many different hats on as possible, right? And that's what critical thinking is all about. Often critical thinking is assumed to be just asking questions, and of course, while that is part of part of critical thinking, I think the ability to look at things from multiple lenses and then to draw all that information together to say for yourself what is going on here, and have an independent perspective that is Ashima's perspective on an issue or a problem, would be very helpful. So, for example, take what's going on with, and yes, Shuha, I'm going to wrap up. Take what's happening with the coronavirus, right? Uh, there's so many different opinions and so many different views. Looking at it from a public health perspective, looking at it from an economic perspective, looking at it from a central perspective, state perspective, political perspective, maybe from your MP's perspective, from the stranded workers perspective. What is your view of what should be done and how it should be done? Is something that I think is going to be a key skill in the whole public affairs. You will be valued for having your own view, having looked at everybody else's view. And the last thing I will say is that unfortunately in this sector, a lot of people are just copying what others are saying and then contradicting themselves, because one day they are talking about somebody's view and the next day they are talking about somebody else's view. So developing your own independent thinking about issues is a great thing to do. So I think that's what I would say you should try and develop as you work through your internship. And I'm pretty sure jobs will open up in this sector. This is an evergreen sector.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pramath.
Thank you, Ashima.
Thank you, Ashrama. We really hope that these small tips and tricks are going to help you prepare for when you professionally and officially join the public policy sector. Good luck to you, and thank you so much for coming. Moving on, we have 3 more candidates left, but Pramath, I think we can take a short break here and do a quick poll with those
Sure.
of us who are joining here. If we can drop the poll, please. Hi, can we drop the poll, please? Okay, so what do you think? Is this the right time for a paid fellowship? We are going to take about 5, 10, 15 seconds and quickly see what kinds of responses come in.
I think people feel that they should do it. Some are not sure, but quite a few are saying that, yeah.
Okay, I think most people think that this is a good time, and why not? I mean, it's a good time to go back to being a student, given that there is a little bit of an uncertainty as to what's going to happen in the job market. But okay, good to see where you guys are all at. But we're not going to spend too much time on this just yet. We have 3 more people left to go, so we'll quickly move on to our third candidate. Pranav, yes. So Pranav works in the finance sector as an investment banker. He's just about completed 2 years in the field, and he's a chartered accountant. And I think he has some more existential questions as to how he can create more impact. Pranav, hi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Pranav. Good to meet you. Why don't you take over with your questions?
Thank you. Hi, Pramath and team. Thanks for the opportunity. I'll just quickly ask my question. So I've completed my chartered accountancy course and spent about 2 years in the investment banking industry, seen success in terms of deal closures, but not yet found a very deep sense of personal satisfaction. It's a highly demanding job with a steep learning curve professionally, but it's leaving me very little time for personal exploration. And while I'm on a good trajectory in my career to move forward professionally, this lack of personal satisfaction in life is leaving me a little unsettled over my future and especially the impact I want to have in the world. So I often wonder if continuing down this path and focusing on my career is the right thing to do, even though it would mean I would have to abandon my thoughts of personal exploration. But many people who followed this path in the past are successful in their careers today. So am I distracting myself by wanting to explore my personal passions and finding a purpose, knowing that there's no guarantee I'll ever find it? Or is there a sweet spot which allows me to do both? And would something like a Young India Fellowship help somebody like me, or should I just keep my head down and stick to the path?
Great question, Pranav. Firstly, thanks for bringing it up. Listen, all of us have the choice to follow the straight and narrow and do well in whatever we do, and you'll follow a career path that many others are following. But I don't think many of us are able to see beyond that. I think you're already seeing beyond that. Somewhere from just hearing you, I get the sense that you want to do more, you want to learn more. Can I ask you to go back to why did you do the CA in the first place?
Honestly, there was no clarity even back then.
Right.
My friends got into it, and
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I ended up. I did well in commerce and math in school, and that's how I ended up in the program.
See, Pranav, I know a lot of chartered accountants in my life, and they are all people who are capable of much more than just doing chartered accountancy, trust me, or having a banking or a finance career. Most of them don't bother, and they're so happy with what they're doing and they have other priorities. But I think you're capable of much more. and you should explore something else. You should at least explore other possibilities. And whether it's the Young India Fellowship, and I'm conflicted, as you know, because of my association with it, but yes, it would be a great opportunity for you to explore new things. There are also many other fellowship programs. You could go do a master's abroad, or just explore right now, because I do think that you don't know what you don't know. It's only when you go out and explore that you will become aware of what the possibilities are. Your chartered accountancy skills, your finance skills, your investment banking skills are never going to be taken away from you. You will always have them. So for some reason, if you want to go back to it after 1 year or 2 years, you'll be able to do that. It will never go away. We are always afraid, thinking, oh my God, if there's a break in my career, what will happen? I'm giving up so much. Look at other people who have stuck to this and been so successful. They are so rich. They have become MDs of companies and so on. I think, of course, that's there, but people have also broken away. A smaller number of people have broken away, but they have broken away. So I do think that you should actively consider looking at some of these other programs. There is no risk. What is the risk? What, Pranab, could be the risk? If you were to go do a 1 year fellowship program, right?
Yeah.
What do you think would be the risk for you?
I mean, for me, like at this point, I can get into, any of these buy-side roles, and those are highly coveted in our industry. So while the competition is large, again, I don't know if at the end of it, is that what I really want to do or not. At this point, that door is open. I just don't know if, going for a fellowship would kind of close that door on me. And
okay.
Yeah, right. And even whether, exploring an MBA versus a Young India Fellowship is another conflict, because if I do an MBA right now, I still don't know at the end of 2 years if what I really want to do. And that is where I thought a fellowship might be a little more open and a little more exploratory for me at this point. But
right.
Yeah.
So how, if I may ask, how old are you? Are you 26?
26.
Yeah,
26.
So I could guess that you're 26. Listen, you have your whole life ahead of you. Even after the YIF, if you want to do an MBA, you'll have time to do that, right? So I think what you're asking then is, should I do the YIF? Should I wait to do an MBA? Should I take on a buy-side role, right?
Yeah.
And I think the real choice is between, if you were to do an MBA, you probably want to take on the buy-side role and follow that path. And that will be a strong corporate career path that you will follow.
Yes.
If you want to make a difference beyond that, then you will have to pursue that more as a hobby. It will have to be more something that you do on the weekends, that you volunteer your time. And I know that you don't find time right now, but a lot of my friends have come from this field and they end up finding a way where they can make the time. So for example, if you end up going into a private equity or a venture capital career, then those people seem to have a lot of time. They are not in the, what I call the maramari of the investment bank.
Yeah.
So I think there are opportunities within that path, but in the beginning, all of us have to work really hard and work our butt off and work long hours, and you don't have time for anything, right? So I do think that it's early days. I would not project too far forward. If you really like what you do and you yearn for a successful corporate career, then my suggestion would be that you stay with the investment banking job, get the buy-side role. It's prestigious. It's tough. It doesn't give you time, but that's a conscious choice you're making. Do the MBA, come back, and then work towards a point in your life, maybe 5-6 years out, when you start to make more time, maybe move into a finance related job in private equity or venture capital where you have more time to pursue what you want.
Sure.
But if the desire to, if all of this doesn't matter, and you feel like, yeah, this is exciting, but I'm differently made. I don't identify with my career, with my colleagues. I don't identify with the work I do. The buy-side role is a prestigious thing within my peer group, but inside of me, it doesn't really matter. Then I would go out and explore. And trust me, losing out that buy-side role seems like a big thing today, but it won't be. you'll get opportunities like that again in your career. That perspective I can give you. At 26, it seems like the biggest thing and the only thing that you can aspire to.
Scary.
But overall in life, this is not the last time you will get such opportunities. You'll get many such opportunities. You should check out our Discovering Purpose course in Harappa and see if it helps you.
I'll do that. I'll for sure do that. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Pranav. And Shuha, I wrapped up in time, I think, this time. Thanks, Pranav.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you so much. And please do check out a Discovering Purpose course. And we hope that it'll help you discover your purpose in your professional journey going forward. Thank you. We'll move on to our fourth candidate now, Ananya Nanda. She's worked for 2 years in the field of skill development, and she too comes from Ashoka University's Young India Fellowship. Hi, Ananya.
Hi.
Hi. So go ahead, over to you.
Yes, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I've been driving myself crazy, just wondering about a lot of questions. But a lot of the other people asked a few questions that resonate with me, and I've got a few answers. So I'll just make it quick. What I am doing right now is working with the National Skill Development Corporation, and that working in sort of an armchair activist corporation in that sense. It has sort of given me a platform to explore that I want to do social impact and I want to do grassroots development and I want to sort of take my passion for development forward. And so did the YIF. So at least I have that sectoral idea quite clear in my head. But when it comes to within the sector, I want to, or even beyond this sector, and it can sort of encompass every job that we're doing. I come across a lot of jargon and even concepts which are alien to me when it comes to hardcore implementation. So let's say, there are skills that I don't feel like I have. There are expertise that I hear people having, and I sort of am found in a place where I don't know, what a Stata tool is, or like what. Of course, now I know because I've interacted. But sort of making pitches, all of these industry-led or employer-demanding skills that you need to have. So I'm trying to sort of identify what skills I have, and therefore sort of bridge the gap.
Yeah.
The gap of the skills that I don't have, and then move forward. But there's so much ambiguity because there is so much exploration. So like Pramath sir, you said that there is, you can explore, and that exploration is a great tool for our generation, but it also leads to so much questioning and so many choices that acha ye kar le ya wo kar le, ya, if I do this I lose out on that. But primarily my question, I can talk about this for hours, but my question is that how do I conduct a skill gap analysis of myself and identify that these are my skills? These will take me to point A and therefore point B.
Yeah.
And if I don't have those skills, then what can I do to bridge them? Should I take a course? Should I pursue a master's? Should I just do a short-term training? What would be the...
Yeah, so I think this is a great question. And actually, it was almost like I paid you to ask this question, because this is exactly what we do at Harappa, right? But not to oversell that. The truth is that what you're struggling with is to become more self-aware and then also do a plan for how you should grow going forward. See, you're working right now. Taking a test is not going to solve your problem. There's no skills assessment for Ananya out there. How have I have made lots of switches in my career. So I went from being a academic to a business guy, right? I had no idea. So I think the big thing I have found in these switches is that you depend a lot on online and on-the-job feedback that you get from your peers, and from your mentors and bosses in the organizations that you work in or the other stakeholders. And at any point in time, what I like to do is work on sort of three areas where I'm lacking in skill. Not more, maybe less, but certainly not more. And I think that's the way I would build yourself forward. And in those three areas, whether you do it by getting coached by somebody or by getting yourself educated or taking an online course, is really up to you. But otherwise it becomes very a very sort of overwhelming burden as you are facing. And oh my God, there's so much to learn. I don't know anything. There's also a little bit of the imposter syndrome that we are all stuck with. So my suggestion would be that if I was to ask you right now, what do you think those three things are that you really need to work on? Do you know those three things?
No, I don't. I will have to.
So if you don't, I think that's your first challenge. I think you are getting so overwhelmed by all this that you're not able to prioritize which are the three things you need right now.
Right.
And I would really think about, I think maybe and if you truly don't know, but you haven't reflected on it, but if you truly don't know, ask. Do you have people you can ask? Do you have people you work with, peers?
My parents,
Boss?
yes, because they are, yeah, I do ask them for a lot.
But are your parents aware of your work? What about people at work? You said you work with NSDC.
Yes, so at NSDC, yes, I have my boss who is extremely supportive and sort of gives me.
Have you ever, has he given proper feedback to you on what you're good at?
Yes, she has.
She has. So take that. Do you work with other peers?
Yes.
We need to. Okay, so take peer feedback. Do you work with external stakeholders?
Yes.
Well, ask them for feedback. You'll also learn what you do well, by the way. It's not always what we don't do well, but you may have certain strengths, which is why you are able to do what you do. So Shuha is telling me to wrap up, but that would be my big message to you. And again, on our Harappa courses, giving and receiving feedback is a very, very important part of how you grow and develop yourself. And I would say that that's a core skill that you have to build. Then how you develop those skills and what you do is, you have multiple paths available, that the choice becomes easier. But I always have these three things that I'm working on constantly in my life.
Right.
Thanks, Ananya. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Ananya. I think bridging the skill gap is a challenge that many, many young professionals experience. So thank you for sharing your question about that. And we hope that you've got some clarity on it. We have one more candidate left in the short take segment, but quickly before that, we are going to do a quick poll. So how nervous are you guys about applying for jobs in the current scenario? Let's see what the answers are. We'll just keep it on for 10 more seconds, not spend too much time on this. Yes, okay. There is, it just keeps balancing between very nervous and somewhat nervous, hence the need of the hour for this show. Okay, I think, Pramath, we have our answer there.
Yes, very clear. That
very, very clear.
I mean, the very nervous is pretty high. It's almost 50%, and then the rest people are somewhat nervous. So not understandable. Not surprising. Very understandable.
Yeah. Okay, quickly, last candidate, we have Namrata Chhabria. She comes from the world of art. Namrata has worked for 3 years in the field, and she's currently an MFA candidate at the Bard School in New York. Hi, Namrata. Thank you for joining us. Why don't you go ahead and ask your question now?
Hi, Shuha. Thanks for the introduction. Okay, so my question was about being an artist or painter, and I'm in the middle of an MFA program right now, and it's going to be continued online this year. I'm wondering if, it's time to think of transferable skills or becoming more of a generalist, or is it a time to be a painter more than ever? I'm really confused about where the art world is right now, and everything is changing infrastructurally. Like, an online MFA is not something that one had signed up for originally. So there's a lot of anxiety about whether art is essential or non-essential at a time like this. Is finding a way for workshops, exhibition viewing rooms, or even therapeutic interventions with art to go online something that that I can think of as a way of sustaining myself. Like I'm very anxious about being a painter because I don't know how Corona is going to pan out. I don't know, galleries are getting shuttered. It's a very uncertain time. And I'm just thinking about the role of, specialization or generalization at a time like this, online versus offline, dispensable income and leisure, everything's up in the air. And I'm just wondering if it's a good time to be a painter or if it's to think of something entirely different.
Talk to me about your painting, Namrata. Why did you choose to go to Bard? Why did you choose to do the MFA?
So Bard has a very unique structure in the sense that we only do 2 months on campus, and the rest of the time, you're away, wherever you want to be. And my idea was to try and do a bunch of residencies. I just finished one in March, and to also kind of give, I like designing workshops. I like kind of looking at art and pedagogy and the intersection of, how art can actually reach a wider audience. Before this, I'd worked with the Devi Art Foundations, and I have a lot of experience designing exhibitions and curating. And, I wanted to get back to my own painting practice and also kind of see where that goes. But, bang in the middle of that, I'm having to deal with a pandemic, having to deal with the situation of it going online. So kind of questioning that move.
Yes. So Namrata, if you were only a painter, and if that was all that you wanted to do and ever did, then I would say don't give that up and go off to take on a sort of generalist role just because of the pandemic and the disruption. Ride it out and continue to build on your passion. See if you can manage for the next few months or year and see where it takes you. But given that you've actually done many other things, in some senses, you're already a generalist in that you've been managing things. I mean, I like to look at things from a little bit of a abstract lens to say, yeah, you were doing museums and you were doing shows and you were curating things, but that's not very different from many other jobs where you have to manage things and you are doing it with in a particular sector, but those are all transferable skills that you have. So my suggestion would be that given that this period is going to be a bit uncertain and disrupted, why don't you go back to doing some of those things, whether in the art sector or whether in the non-art sector, if I can call it that, and bide your time before returning back to full-time painting. And that way you are able to hedge the risks of this time. And not face the uncertainty that you're facing. I think you already have a lot of transferable skills based on what you've done. And somebody like you would be valuable in many other sectors and industries. People want people with a creative eye. People want people with good communication skills, good ability who have aesthetic skills, who can organize things, who can administer and manage things. So I do think that while you may have slotted yourself into an art world, I think if there is nothing available in the art sector, you can actually look at sectors adjacent to art and still find some meaningful work to do, and then look at in parallel building your painting career. The last thing I will say, Namrata, is that just from hearing you and what you've done and some of the words you're using, have you ever considered teaching?
That was actually also a big intention behind getting my MFA, because
so that's what I thought. I think you should. Where are you based right now? Which city?
Chennai at the moment, till the lockdown ends, whenever that is.
No, but there are a lot of good design programs in this country where you can teach, and I'm very certain that that's a job that's there for you right now, right here, right now. So that's another good transition to make. To get yourself a good teaching position, a visiting position, an adjunct position, maybe even in a design school in Chennai. And that gives you some runway and gives you some dispensable income to manage. Because an MFA is an equivalent of a PhD. Any university or college would be very happy to have you. So really think about that.
Thank you so much. This is helpful. Thank you.
All right, Namrata. Good luck.
Thank you, Namrata. Good luck for the completion of your MFA, and we hope that you manage to find your feet back on the ground once this lockdown is over. We're running slightly short on time, so we are going to quickly move over to our deep dive counseling session. We have Dhruv, who's just completed his postgraduate diploma in liberal arts from Ashoka University, and he's at a very interesting juncture in his career right now where he has some tough decisions to make. Dhruv, hi, could you please switch on your camera? Yes, there you are. Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, Dhruv. How are you?
Dhruv, I think there's some, we can't hear you. Can you check your audio, please?
Yeah. Hi. Am I audible now?
Yeah, now you're audible.
Over to you.
Okay. Yeah. So I've not done. I'm not a Young India Fellow. I did my 4 years from Ashoka. So it's
Right, Dhruv.
undergraduate.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Postgraduate diploma from Ashoka. So, sir, I just wanted to. So I've been admitted to 2 schools in the US. One is Harris School of Public Policy that offers, and the program is Masters in Computational Analysis and Public Policy. And the other is Masters in Economics at the Columbia University. So, I mean, even if I get all the scholarship that I've applied for and the foundation that I've applied to in India, I mean, I'll have to take some loan, like say 30 to 50 lakh. So, given the job uncertainty in the US, is that feasible, that amount?
Oh boy. That's a tough one because that amount is not a small amount, and I can understand that that might be worried you. So you've done the 4 years of BA at Ashoka because I saw the PGD. So you did the 4 years, and then what did you major in?
So, my major was in economics,
Right.
and I did a minor in computer science and a concentration in mathematics.
Oh wow, very interesting.
Right.
And so you have the option is to either go to Harris for a master's in
Computational analysis and public policy.
Computational analysis and public policy, and just is the MA in economics at Columbia is a plain economics degree.
Right.
And in either case, you're going to spend some money.
Right.
Right, because they're giving you some scholarship. So
yeah.
Okay. And so I'm assuming that this is going to be hard for your parents to fund.
Yeah, I mean, they can't fund anything for now.
Okay. And are you able to get some? Are loans accessible either here or at the universities there?
So loans in India, I've talked to banks. So there's an HDFC Credila that offers loan up to 50 lakh rupees, but that's at the interest rate of 14 to 15%. And other banks, I'm not eligible for a public sector bank loan. And other private sector banks, Axis Bank and ICICI, they offer loan up to 35 lakhs.
Right.
So I'm not also sure how to bridge that gap as well. Like even if I take 35 lakhs, there's still some amount left.
I see, which you have to still find the money for.
Right. So I've applied for foundations in India, Tata and all these foundations, but the results are yet to come.
Right. And if you don't go, what is the alternative? Do you have a job?
No. So, I mean, I'm very interested in research. So I'm applying for, research positions with professors and with different, economic research think tanks in Delhi. But I mean, I've not gotten any response yet. But I mean, I think if I don't go, I'll definitely do research, like work on a paper or two.
And is that what you want to do long term?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, so yeah, I mean, that's why I applied to these 2 courses, because I can take a lot of math courses and statistics courses, advanced statistics courses, and apply for maybe a PhD after that.
Right. So doing a PhD is an option, or is something that you're working towards.
Right, but then I don't know which subject to do my PhD. I mean, statistics, economics, computer science. I have right now. I don't know.
Okay. So let's structure this problem a little bit, because it's not an easy decision. What could be the possible outcomes of this, right? First is that you go to Chicago. The advantage I see with that is that the University of Chicago has a tremendous reputation, and the Harris School itself has a tremendous reputation. The computational, did you say computational analysis, right? The computational analysis stuff, I think would be actually quite valuable from a career perspective, given what's happening in the world. I think the international organizations like the World Bank and many of the international organizations, many of the international policy making organizations would value that that combination, which is the application of data science and computation to public policy. So I see that as a very futuristic or a future ready degree. And so I think the fact that it's the University of Chicago, which is well known for all its Nobel winners and has a tremendous reputation and has had a tremendous reputation forever. And the fact that you're doing something in a very interesting forefront area is very interesting. The second alternative is, of course, to go to Columbia. The master's in economics doesn't leave you with very much, right? As you know, it's a very common degree. And it's not, I mean, Columbia is still Columbia, it's an Ivy League institution, but it's not like something that you can't get somewhere else. So one thing I would clearly say is that you should try to choose, I would choose Chicago over Columbia, just based on the reputation of the University of Chicago and the marketability of that degree that you're talking about. And that will also then give you access to many possible fields for PhD, right? Because of your undergrad degree also is fairly interdisciplinary, and what you would be doing at Chicago would also be interdisciplinary. So you will then have a pretty strong range of things to pick from to do your PhD and spend the 4 or 5 years. I guess that resolves the Chicago versus Columbia issue. And I don't know if you were asking me that, but I wanted to put that on the table because it comes to the next thing that I want to say. I do think that the 30 to 50 lakhs is difficult. The question is, though, will that change in the future?
Right. I mean, I don't think that would change. I mean, I'll still have to borrow 30 to 50 lakh.
Yeah. So honestly, that's a bullet you have to buy today or tomorrow if you're going to go study abroad. Otherwise, you actually abandon the plan of doing the master's and just remaining studying till you are able to get into a PhD program, which will hopefully be funded.
Right.
So my sense is that, firstly, I don't think you should worry about Corona too much because you'll anyway graduate after 2 years. And these are 2-year programs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would really say that if there's a way for you to bite the bullet and go, I would try and do it. I mean, of course, you just cannot raise the money and not go, then you can't control that. But
right.
Assuming that you are able to get some loans and you are able to find some bridge funds to go, it's a bet you are taking. But, you know, I'm yet to meet a student who goes to a top university and is so riddled with debt that they go bankrupt or they can't survive, right? So something will turn out. And I'm not saying this in a fatalistic manner or just hoping for the best, but I've seen that things work out. When I went to do my master's and PhD, I didn't have funding. My father gave me some money. I went in a naive way, not knowing where the funding for the next year was coming out. And then I was able to pull that together and still make it work. So my suggestion to you would be that, listen, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to bite that bullet, whether it is now or later. So do your best and see if you can go. And if you're going to spend the money, then you go to Chicago rather than Columbia and go for the degree that is more sort of makes you career ready. And yes, there will be loans to pay, and then there will be payments to do. But then, if you do the PhD, you will also start to earn something, or maybe between the master's and PhD, you take a job. So I think many possibilities will be there, and we'll solve that problem then. But I would focus on solving the problem of finding the money right now, and being very clear about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, Professor. Thank you so much. Suha, do we need to wrap up?
Yes, thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Dhruv. We hope
Thank
that
you, Dhruv.
this helps
You're
in your
welcome.
thinking. And congratulations once again. Both
Yeah,
schools are
congrats.
schools
Yeah.
to get into, and you should be very proud of yourself for your achievement at this point. Pramath, we're running late, but to all of you who are joining us as attendees, we are going to extend this session for a few minutes so we can address some of the very, very many questions that you have sent in right now. Pramath, the first question that I want to ask you is from this person who works in retail and wants to now move over to a field that is more relevant with strategy and doesn't involve as much traveling as retail does. And so their question is this a good time for them to do a program like the Vedika Scholars Program, or what other options do you think they have available to them to make this shift?
So the question is that they work in retail right now.
Right. And they want to move over. Right now, their job in retail
It's
is
very functional.
Yes, and also has a lot of travel.
Yeah, so I think that you've done a few years of retail. This is a great time to make a shift. The MBA is the best shift if you are going to be in the field of business. And yes, if you are a woman and are interested in the Vedika Scholars Program, it's a program that's close to my heart. So definitely you should give it a shot. But then there are many other MBA programs as well. And I would strongly advocate taking one of those and making the shift, and then becoming a more of a generalist than being a functional person. Absolutely.
Right. So the second question is, this is an interesting one actually. We've been talking about going back to being students, and the question is very directly relevant to that. And they're asking that there are people who take study breaks for 3 to 4 years, and then they find it difficult to go back to a job where they can occupy a managerial position. So how can they navigate this challenge?
See, everybody gets very fixated about the next job that you get after you completed a degree. And companies, when they are hiring you, are not going to give you credit for those 3-4 years that you are studying.
Right.
To say that, oh, that's the equivalent of what you were doing at work, and therefore I'm going to bring you at a senior level. It doesn't happen. It's a pipe dream to think that because you were studying for 4-5 years, that you will get a higher job. When I actually got a job with McKinsey, I was 29 years old, and all my managers were younger than me. But you know what happens, and I've seen this at ISB as well, because in ISB you take people who come with experience, and when they finish their MBA, they want to be counted for that experience. But if you're making a switch in career, people will hire you at the entry level again. And then people get very upset with that. I think the main thing to keep in mind is that the first job that you get after studies doesn't decide your future. Your experience of having studied for 4-5 years and generally having developed life experience will help you on your trajectory. So your growth will be much faster than other people, and ultimately you will catch up and outstrip other people, because you will bring more maturity and more wisdom and more presence and personality to the role. So I would not be impatient about the first role that you will get after you finish your studies. I would have confidence that the amount of time you've invested is not going to be wasted, and it will actually help you in your career progression in the future.
Right. Okay, the next couple of questions, Pramath, is actually from people who have a fair amount of work experience, actually. And the first one is from Shumona Roy. And she says that what would you say to someone who's a writer and an academic and wants to do something with the amateur interests in art and using art for storytelling? And she says she's not a trained artist and she's a very shy person, which makes public speaking a bit of an issue for her. And she finds it intimidating. But she still wants to do in both these fields, storytelling and art. And how would you suggest or advise she, take this up?
This person sounds very familiar, Shuha. Maybe you and I know her.
Yes.
But I think I never knew this side of Shimona. But
Yeah.
if that's what she wants to do, hey, she would be great in instructional design.
Right.
So, for example, given that she's a teacher and a writer and somebody who loves to do art and is shy, you can actually be in the background and create stuff that can actually then be offered online and through the visual medium to students to learn. And I know that we struggle with this a lot at Harappa, is how do you take an idea or how do you take a concept and describe it both in the right words and in the right with the right graphic elements to explain it and to illustrate it. So somebody like her would be invaluable in all ed tech content that is getting created in droves these days, whether it is for school kids or it's for college kids, it's for places like Harappa or Byju's or wherever. So I think she should really take a look at what might be, Shimona, you should really take a look at how can you bring this to pedagogical and instructional design for digital content that people are creating all over the world. You have a second career and an alternative career ahead of you.
And storytelling also is one of the buzzwords that are doing the rounds today, right?
Yes, everything about communication is now storytelling.
Storytelling, exactly. So there's, I think, ample opportunities to explore in that field. We have somebody who says, I'm 46 and have 26 years of work experience, but I think they want to go back to being a student now. So what kind of course would you recommend that they do?
I think I saw the question and I think I know Kamal. I think it's the same Kamal that I know. And I think, Kamal, the good news there would be that there's many things that you can do. I think, Kamal, you should really think about a good executive MBA program. A lot of people who do the program at the PGP Max program at ISB, for example, are 46 years old. And I think that that's certainly the executive MBA is definitely a program. There's a lot of those programs available online as well, Kamal. So for example, Stanford has this LEAD program that's like a mini MBA that you can do online. Of course, you should take our Harappa courses. They are for all ages, and you'll enjoy doing them. But jokes apart, I think there are many of these programs that are available that are part-time, but they are meant for people who are in their 40s. There are these advanced management programs that are available as well. And I think the biggest learning that happens, Kamal, in these is the peer learning. Because, I know you're an IT guy, so you probably just interact a lot more. I mean, you've done some business as well, but you will meet people from multiple fields and from multiple disciplines and from multiple geographies, and the learning from that will be tremendous. 46 today is still young. You at least have 30 more years left in your career. So please look at doing something that will build your career further.
Absolutely. Pramath, this brings us to our last question for this afternoon. And we are now going to move our focus back to those who are just starting off. And we've spoken quite a bit about how important skills are and your educational training is and the right time to look for a job and all of that. But I think one of the very most important and key points that a lot of young professionals forget is how important your boss is and how important your manager is. So the question is, who is a good leader? And how can somebody identify somebody to be your manager?
So listen, you can't predict who would be a good manager for you or not.
Right.
This you will only know once you start working with them.
Right.
What you can do is pick up from people who worked with them before or from the grapevine what people are saying about somebody. So that is the only extent to which you can predict whether somebody is a good manager or not for you, because your friend may have worked there, you may have heard other people who say good things about this person and so on. But ultimately, once you get in there, it's only then when you realize whether this person is actually going to be a good manager for you or not. And there I have a very simple metric. The simple metric is this person really committed to your success? Are they just giving you tasks and saying, get this done, get that done, you didn't do this well, how come you messed up? Do you have a very transactional relationship? Or do you actually have a relationship where this person says, listen, now that you're under my wing, I'm going to make sure that I take you from here to here. Now, you won't find too many people like that in your career. But when you find somebody like that, grab them and don't let them go for as long as you can. You won't be able to work with them for the rest of your life, but at least maximize the time that you have with them so that you can get the maximum benefit of having somebody really pull you up and make you successful. Somebody once gave me this analogy that the best bosses are those who are up there on top of the wall and they're literally throwing you the rope for you to catch and hauling you up, right? And it's a crude analogy, but it kind of makes the point that these are the people who really lift you, who throw the opportunities your way, who guide you, who coach you, who pull you up, and you never forget them. And that's the time when you have the maximum growth, because you feel empowered. You feel like if you make mistakes or if you suggest some bold ideas, you'll not be judged. They'll not shout you down. They won't take credit for your work. And, we have this Habits Matter podcast on bad bosses. And they are not those nightmare bad bosses. So that's what I would say. Find people who can really lift you, who really care about your success and make you successful.
Great. On that note, it's time for us to wrap up now. We've gone a few minutes over time. We know that, but thank you so much, Pramath, for answering all their questions. I think each of them was very pertinent, very poignant, and something that a lot of people are grappling with. But before we quickly wrap up, Pramath, would you like to take everybody through?
Yeah, I just would love to have everybody spread the word that, a lot of students are struggling with summer internships. And if you could encourage them to consider a virtual internship program that Harappa is offering this summer, where if you are not able to physically get a summer internship with a company, come intern with us. We will give you some of our Harappa courses and try to give you a project that will be a project with us at Harappa or with other companies that are part of our network who are willing to take on work from home interns. So this is a virtual summer internship program being offered by Harappa for students who would like to do an internship despite the lockdown. I know a lot of students who actually had internships and now those internship offers have been taken back. But there are equally quite a few opportunities to work online that we are finding, and Harappa is aggregating that, combining that with our Harappa online courses to offer you a virtual internship program. In some cases, those virtual internship programs are also being given credit by the universities that you study in, so that will also help you get the credit for the summer internships that you need for your degrees. So just spread the word for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pramath. This has been wonderful. This has been so insightful. And I want to thank all of you who have joined. And we're so sorry for not being able to get to all of your questions. But this just means that you're going to join us back again next Sunday, 3 to 4, once again. And we will definitely answer your question. If you want to be a part of this show and you want to come online and ask your question, make sure that you check out our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter handles. We have all the information relevant for our Harappa Habit Hour series, as well as all our courses on our social media platforms. And of course, check out the Harappa website as well for more ideas and more pointers on our courses. Thank you so much. This has been great. I hope you all have a great week ahead. Pramath, once more, we will see you next Sunday, and goodbye.
Thanks, Shuha. Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
Bye.